Episode 15, Day of the Deltic. The engines were delighted to have Nigel back, and for weeks on end, Nigel grinned broadly as the other engines fussed round him. He didn't normally like having a fuss made of him, but given he had been close to scrapping, well, it didn't bear thinking about.
"I just don't understand,"
he said to Alan one day.
"I don't remember how I got onto the out-of-use line. I fell asleep on the line closest to the shed."
"It is odd," Alan said, frowning. "None of us were around when you were moved, so I don't think anyone saw what happened." Gronk kept very quiet. He had been glad to see Nigel come back, especially as he was feeling very guilty. He had been told to move Nigel to the out-of-use line by the foreman.
"It's all very strange," Sir Alf said. "All I can say, Nigel, is that it won't happen again. We are indispensable, you know."
"Since when?" asked Alan. "Do you not remember what that Standard 4 said to Stephen just before his accident?"
"My dear Alan," soothed Sir Alf, "the Standard 4 was only teasing Stephen. They wouldn't dare scrap me." Nigel snorted. "What makes you or I impervious to scrapping?" he asked. "Surely that's for the company to decide, when and if we're past our best." "Nonsense," Sir Alf said. "Besides, what would they replace me with?" "I don't know," Nigel retorted, "but at least I only needed a new cylinder. You'd need a whole new boiler and smoke box by the sounds of your recent wheezing." "I don't wheeze," Sir Alf bellowed. "Well, never. I do not, I repeat, I do not wheeze."
"Just a second," Alan said alarmed. "What's that?" They all looked round and jumped. It was a diesel. A new one by the looks of it. French blue, with cream stripes. It ticked over almost silently.
"When did that get there?"
Nigel wondered. "I don't know," Alan said. "It wasn't there a few minutes ago. I know, because it's blocking my path to the junction." Gronk stared at the blue diesel with awe. It was magnificent, with silver grey bogey frames, a silvery grey roof, and silver buffers shining in the sunlight. Without warning, the ticking over stopped and the diesel became silent. Nigel was looking at the diesel carefully.
"It's the same both ends," he said with wonder. "Look, there's a cab for the driver at both ends."
Do you think the spare one is for the fireman?" Herbert asked. The other engines ignored him. "I've never seen anything like it," Alan said cautiously. "Do you think it's nice?"
"It's certainly a nice colour," Sir Alf remarked. "It's not unlike the blue shade the Caledonian Railway used all those years ago."
"Rubbish," Alan said. "It's darker than that. It's closer to the Prussian blue of Great Northern a few years ago." You're both wrong," Herbert said. "It's sky blue. I like the cream bands," he added, looking at the Deltic's nameplate with interest. "Deltic?"
"Deltic, Herbert," Sir Alf said firmly.
"Deltic? That's very interesting. My driver knows about Deltics. His brother serves in the Navy, you know. Deltics are a type of diesel engine that were used in ships." "Deltic, eh?" Alan said, glancing back to the line. "It's gone." It had indeed vanished. The engines looked at each other nervously.
It was here a moment ago, wasn't it? Asked Alan after a long pause.
I certainly thought so,
Nigel grunted, going back to sleep. Sir Ralph was looking with interest at the patch of oil on the ground. I wonder, he said quietly. That night, when the engines had returned to the shed, all they could talk about was the mysterious blue diesel. The little tank engines were muttering amongst themselves on the siding, Geoffrey the J50 tank engine being the loudest of the mutinous steam engines.
Mark my words, if that's the sort of engine we have to shunt for now, it'll be end of steam as we know it.
Alan sighed. The night was dark, clouded over, and with no stars in sight. He could see Gronk resting in the siding nearest the carriage works, and Stephen was puffing away with the last train of the day. The yard was quiet, save for the tank engine's argument. Alan jumped and looked round. The diesel was nowhere to be seen.
Look, Alan.
Alan turned towards Nigel as the Deltic roared past with a fast train, honking once more as it charged towards the junction and disappeared into the night.
What do you make of that, then?
Nigel called to Alan.
He's very fast.
Alan said nothing. He felt uneasy still. It was early the next morning when Gronk awoke, his driver preparing him for shunting. Gronk yawned and looked to his right. The diesel sat on the siding outside the yard, silent and still. "Hello," Gronk said, moving forward cautiously. The diesel said nothing. "I'm Gronk," Gronk said, but faltered. The diesel's front lamps were switched off. "You must be asleep then," Gronk thought. "I'll just go do my shunting." "Oh," Gronk said brightly. "Hello. You can have my siding for the moment. I've got shunting to do." The diesel blinked its lights. "Yes, Herbert's pickup goods," Gronk said. The diesel said nothing. "Well, nice meeting you, Deltic," Gronk said, starting to move away.
You're hiding something.
Gronk lurched. "What?" he said, trying to recover.
You're hiding something,
Deltic said.
It's been the same at every yard I go to. The diesel shunters always look guilty. Which engine were you asked to remove?
Gronk hurried away, trying not to look back at the solitary diesel. Deltic stayed silent.